Let me welcome Alex Getsin, the Acting Information Security Manager of Tipalti, a giant in the payment industry based out of Silicon Valley, California, with offices in Israel. So Alex actually started off as a security analyst over in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, before moving on to a role of instructor and then held a consultant position in a few companies. Later on, moving on to a project manager role, until he landed in his current role as the information security manager of Tipalti. I'm sure I've missed a lot of things, Alex. Did you want to add anything? Did you want to give a brief introduction about yourself here?
Sure thing. I'll throw in a few words. Thank you for having you, Ben. It's a pleasure. And in addition to what you said, I guess you got most of it. I'm responsible for security at Tipalti. We're a global payables automation company, and we'll help our clients, such as Zumba, Zola, Blizzard, Twitch, make payments at scale to their vendors. And that, of course, means they deal with a lot of security of financial transfers, a lot of sensitive data, and other issues, more technical.
Yeah, and you've been in that role for a year and a half, I think.
That's right. Yes, I have been for over a bit over a year and a half with Tipalti, and it's been a pleasure since.
Yeah. I think I've been in contact with Tipalti for a few years now. I even have a friend there. Yeah, it does seem like a very interesting company. I went over to your offices over in San Mateo. So I like to start with two couple of what I call icebreaker questions, just to get, a bit more information about yourself, let our listeners know a bit more about you on the personal side. I like to ask about your marital status and what your favorite drink is.
Sure thing. Yeah, no problem. So my favorite drink is Belgian beer, wet beer. And I'm just recently engaged. So yeah, congratulations to me.
Oh.
Once this thing blows over, we'll make it official.
Definitely. And if you like Belgian beers, I actually had an interview with the CISO of Carlsberg a few weeks back, and it seems they have more than 150 brands of beer. A lot of them are wheat beers, I think. So you should definitely get in touch with him. He's taking a tour now to taste all the beers. So I think it's worth it.
That's quite the occupation, quite a mission.
Yeah, and they have an open bar every day after 4 p.m. So,
Well, some people know how to live.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. And we've had like a pre-conversation. I told you that the main goal of this podcast is for me to get to know you personally and give our listeners a chance to get to know you better, especially the man behind the role. And in order to do that, I'd like to ask a bunch of personal questions and semi business questions here. So let's dive right in. What's the one thing you wish you'd known when you began your career?
Well, I would love knowing the price of Bitcoin in 2018. That would be great. But I think what would be super cool if I knew that information security was not just network security, and I see that with a lot of people that just start in InfoSec, and InfoSec is actually such a broad profession, domain, world, and you can often hit start on the wrong foot or start with something that does not fit your interests. For me, that was not the case. I love network security, but I just did not know how exciting AppSec or hacking or other roles could be. So that would be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you started off in the network security space, and then you moved on to the app security space, and I imagine that nowadays you have to deal with compliance, obviously, working in the payment industry as well. So you come to know more facets of information security, on top of obviously network security and application security.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. What would you say, and I know this might be a challenging question here, but what would you say is your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Well, I can clearly still remember an item from my first job when I was sent to deal with piece of tech that I've studied and I've worked within the lab and I've got certified on, and I've went down in the field to implement it and it completely failed, and I was just astounded because I had the certificate to prove that I know how to do it, right? But my big lesson then is that technology is more of voodoo magic than documentation, and there's nothing like real experience in the field with it.
Yeah.
So I was more humble from there on.
Yeah, and personally, I think most of our failures, not most, but a lot of our failures, I mean, we always remember them more clearly and more vividly, and we typically learn more from them than from our accomplishments. But having said that, what would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
Right, those are difficult questions. I am very happy with the work that I do with the Cloud Security Alliance for research on the cloud security. It's volunteering work, and a year ago I've gotten to lead author the CSA Cloud Penetration Testing Playbook, which was the then first of its kind on attacking cloud applications and environments, and I'm very happy with that.
Hmm. Okay, and that's the CSA chapter over in Israel, or is it part of the global network?
No, we actually do have a great chapter in Israel, led by Moshe, and I am, however, part of a work group, which is a cross-country, cross-time zone workforce of volunteers that come together every 2 weeks, and they do research, they analyze survey answers from the public, and they deliver resources that others use to better their cloud security, be them vendors, consumers, whatever.
Okay, nice, interesting. Um, what advice would you give someone waiting to pursue a career similar to yours?
Well, that is an interesting question. I'd like to start with I'm not sure that anyone can or should just decide that they want to pursue a career similar to another person, because they'll just have so many different challenges and interests, but most importantly, opportunities, right? I find in my experience that if I stick to a predefined course in a world or a career or an industry that's so changing, that I'll miss on more than what I'll gain. There's definitely enough, interests and diverse technologies and threats, and there are many, many opportunities. We're very blessed in the cybersecurity industry to have many opportunities. And I believe, taking the best opportunity you have with good mentors, good leaders, good people, and a subject matter that's closer to your interest, do better than pursuing a career path that someone has had. But to walk away with something, some key things would be always learning, even if you're just finished, your CCSK or CISSP or whatever, big or small, always keep learning, and always respect your colleagues and your managers and your vendors, particularly, because they will be the ones pushing you upwards, pulling you down, giving you more opportunities or closing doors for you. Just a few things.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway, by the way. Um, and, uh, w- and I know that in Tipalti, I believe your organization, like the CISO role, the information security manager role, I believe it's somehow related to IT or into the technology side. What would you say, or rather, what would you feel about the role of CISOs being a part of the IT group or the IT department? There are two schools of thoughts, I think. One is very pro that, and the other one is find a lot of disadvantages in that. And I'm curious about your take.
Right. So, firstly, a CISO working under IT is the traditional and the most common structure, perhaps. And so there's that. That's just how it is, and there are many pros and cons to it. When you're in IT, it's very easy to reach out to your best bud IT manager or your best bud network engineer, and get stuff done with them. And you speak the same language, you work together, you have a good working relationship, and a big chunk of what you'll be doing in security relates to IT. And as your work is management without authority or guidance without authority, it's way easier to work with someone or ask someone to do or improve on configurations or security gaps when you have a good working environment. And being in that group with them helps. However, when you're in that group, you miss out on working in relationships with others, and particularly with non-technical groups. I know many are very audible or very loud about how that's a no-go, a bad thing to do. But the truth is that the industry works the way it is, and first we gotta recognize that and do good with it. And there's definitely a lot of good to it. For a lot of companies, it's just not the right thing to put a CISO under the CEO or under product. I work with my CTO a lot. He's a great guy and he knows a lot about security, and I haven't been negative or hurt by that for 1 second. It's been only a pleasure, and I've stood to benefit a great deal from it.
Yeah, and I do agree that I think it goes back to the organizational structure, and I think it varies. Some organizations, CISO reporting to a CEO might be more suitable, whereas in other organizations it might not. If I need to categorize it, I would say probably a more technological company, but not too big. CISO reporting to an IT related function is probably the most common setup I see.
Interesting. What I've noticed lately is they used to manage security budget by a percentage of the IT budget, and there was a time when IT budget used to be huge, just huge, and that percentage would translate well. Just an example that is not the case today. Even in some extreme cases, the infrastructure budget for your if you're in the cloud, infrastructure budget would not even be in IT, and so you would have just an unreasonable low percentage. Some things just don't work today for this model, but in some cases it still does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think with the shift nowadays, a lot of cloud related budgets, a lot of them encompass security features as well. So it's harder to distinguish and, to just like assign different blocks for the budget.
I find that, the best place organizationally and best people to work with would be the people that would want to champion you most, champion that role most.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the people that are naturally more aligned with security. Mm-hmm. That changes, of course.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would you say your best resources that have helped you along the way are?
Well, I've been very, very keen on learning from best practices, learning for professional development, and always having a reference to how things should be in the proper way, in the ideal term. And there's a lot of resources for that, for technology like CIS, security configuration benchmarks for web security. There's OWASP for cloud security, there's CSA, and it's never ending. So there's almost never a shortage of answers to questions how something should optimally be in a secure state. But the better answer here would be people, the people that you're working with. And again, they can be the ones that make your project a success or make your project a failure. And it does not even have to be so direct as to insult them or be great friends with them. You just have to sometimes be more aware and keen on perceiving what a person working with you and has an impact on your project is looking for, and what has been his contribution, or what is his benefit from it, and appreciate that. And that will be the key distinguisher or the key resource in the success of that thing you're doing. One of the things I've learned over the past 2 years that's fresh is that I've stopped believing that security is a purely technical field, and I've started believing that security is more about change and transition, and therefore it's people skills that do more impact than being a technical guru.
Yeah. So if I have to boil it down, you're talking about industry best practices and people. And it's not a coincidence that my next question is about whether you can share like 3 names or 3 stories about people that were very influential to you in your life, I mean.
Well, I'll try to scope it down to my career, if you don't mind. And in my career, my first mentor in security, the first person that really made an effort to teach me not only the subtleties of security, but also the subtleties of the trade and how to succeed in this career. So that first mentor was Sasha Balshine. Worked together in a tech field implementing firewalls. So big props to him. And currently, the big benefactors of my success at my current work are my CDO Igor Weinberg and my Chief Compliance Officer Porla. And it is to their credit, a lot of the success and the change that I do end up succeeding to make. And thanks for that.
Okay, and I'm sure they will appreciate it. You mentioned Sasha, Igor, and I didn't catch the name of the third person.
That will be Perla.
Okay, Perla. What's the one common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Well, I'll give you 2. One is that I don't believe that cybersecurity is IT security, or that it's hacking. Actually, I came to believe that cybersecurity or security is the most diverse profession or professional domain in the industry. That you're both essentially a specialization of another role, like IT security. So you're a person who knows IT, but that's security, and you're a professional on your own because your job, your goals are so much different, but also tied down to the company still and to the mission of IT, for example, still. And secondly is that it's not mostly technical. The better I got, and I always try to be at least 50% technical, always hands-on, at least on my core practices. What I find is that I do end up making more impact and more change the better I am on the soft skills, and the better I am with people, especially even when I was just doing penetration testing and not managing security. You still need to convince the person working with you or the person you're working for that the change or the find or the project are worth it and are important and they extend to benefit them. And that has a little to do with technology and a lot to do with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard I've heard variations of that answer before, and thank you for that. Now, there's one question I like to ask, and it relates more about myself and my role as as the CEO of GRC Consulting Group. What advice would you give me, or any other vendors in a shoes similar to mine? If you could step to my shoes, what would you have done that you think that you might think that I've missed out on, or that you feel that's missing in the world today, like in terms of vendor client relationship?
Well, I wouldn't assume that I know how to tell you how to do your job. But I can share that I feel that I'm always looking for a partner that I can run with, that will look out for my benefit, not only as someone who's buying something, but someone who's buying something and needs to sell it internally. So I need tools to sell what I'm being sold, that can relate to ROI, or that can relate to assurance I can be given of the quality of the service or whatever. So whatever I'm getting, I still most of the time need to sell, even if I'm making the final call. And second is that I'm looking for partners that can anticipate how I can succeed and empower that, or how I can fail with what I'm being sold, and prevent that. And a lot of the times, the technologies that I touch on or implement can really shove a stick in my bike's wheel, and cause a lot of damage. And there's no one who would know better or can succeed or fail with what you're giving me than you. And I found that very important lately in particular.
Yeah, and I think a community, and there are many communities right now, but a community can really help delivering those key values, because once we're able, as a vendor, I think personally speaking, as a vendor, once we're able to connect you to peers, and you can just have like a straight talk with them around the same issues, same problems, I think that really provides a lot of value.
Well, I did actually find value with your help, helping me make contact with other community members, and I appreciate that. That's been great.
That's my pleasure. What's the most annoying sales pitch that you've encountered? And I know you've probably encountered a few of those, but if you could, nail it down to one or two.
I've actually gotten an email yesterday, I believe, that was a sales pitch, but it was built like it was a colleague of mine or just someone from work asking you about security stuff. And it really got me confused for a few good lines. It looks like phishing when you think about it, and that just looks like an unethical practice. So I think it would be best to avoid that kind of stuff. I don't think many people advertise by fear today, or maybe I don't see that as much because I'm not targeted with it. But that is also not a great practice. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah. Okay. And what it is that you are looking for in a vendor then?
Well, as I've shared earlier, I'm looking for a vendor that can really manage my success and particularly avert my failures. Because a lot of the tech that I'm working with integrates with a bunch of sensitive stuff and does some very important work for us. And I have tens of different technologies. I can be an expert on them, of course, and I'm really relying on my partners to leverage their service or their technology or their resold or integrated technology to do the best with it and absolutely not do any harm. So customer success management to an extent.
Yeah, and this is again another recurrent answer. A lot of the CISOs I'm talking with, they're looking for a partner, long-term strategic partnership, and not to be sold on. So yeah, definitely there's that. So what would your advice be to vendors that want to connect with you, but they want to do it in a non-intrusive manner?
Well, I find that I look actively a lot for vendors and for solutions. And the ones I like most are the ones that A, are easy to reach out to, and B, have a reason for me to reach out to you other than asking for a quote. For example, publishing papers, conducting research, contributing to a nonprofit that furthers security education or standards. And so the best vendor can hope of having a good engagement with me is as best as he can, put himself out there in a way that already helps me or already informs me in some other way that's related. Other than that, I guess, LinkedIn, email, if you're able to make a good connection there, and of course, word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if I have to boil it down, you can go back to your network, or you're looking for vendors that have a strong content marketing mechanism in place that actually can create real value, and as you mentioned, educate. And I'm assuming that like LinkedIn requests and email requests, you will only look at if they stand out in the crowd, right?
Yes, I'm big on content marketing consumption, and I see myself mostly engaged with vendors that I looked for or that reached me via my colleagues or otherwise I have gotten recommendations for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there any preferred media or social media channel or any way that our listeners can connect with you online?
Yes, so that will be my LinkedIn. It's Alexander Getsin. And I would love for anyone to reach out to me about research work, cloud security, or if they're a Fintech CISO, they want to connect and chat about work, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. Can you name like a few, or it could be either one or a few most important things to you in your career? And I think we had a similar questions about resources, but if you have like anything to add here, that would be great.
Well, something that's very important for me to do in my career is to nurture my colleagues, my surroundings, and hopefully have an influence on the industry via the nonprofit work that I do, to develop an awareness and to try to consider doing the right thing for security and also for privacy, because that ties down to my now few last year's realization that the absolute majority of my work is influencing and advertising and educating and not actually doing. And when I think about it, it was true also when I was actually, consulting or penetration testing or implementing. The most impact I could ever have as a security guy is with people, and so that is quite important for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. What would you say your other interests apart from work are?
Well, I do a bunch of music on the personal note. I do music and I love travel, of course, and I love my nonprofit work. Of course, I do believe I'd still be doing security if I did not have to work full time. If I was suddenly a billionaire, I do believe I'd still be doing security on research and a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And I dedicate a lot more time to nonprofit work. It combines something good you can give back, and also it's something you're already good at. It's always fun to do something you're good at. Very rewarding. I guess there's that.
Yeah, and you mentioned traveling. What are your favorite locations? I mean, you've probably traveled extensively by now, but do you have can you pinpoint it to like a few favorite locations? Countries?
Sure, and of course, actually, in cybersecurity is a great job if you're looking to travel around. I mean, the opportunities to go places you should know. You're probably sitting in your U.S. office right now, is it?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I've been to the States, to London, UK extensively, and many other places, and I'll be looking to go to Japan next. I think once we're able.
Nice, yeah. I recently marked on Google Maps all the places I've been to, like a few continents. I can tell you it adds up, but I think if I have to pinpoint it, probably, as just as a holiday vacation, I think Switzerland and Austria are probably the most beautiful places I've seen, with the Alps and the rivers and the lakes. But also, like, you have so much like great nature sites here in the US, and obviously Southeast Asia, like, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos,
Yeah.
Vietnam. It's all amazing.
What do you prefer, Southeast Asia or the U.S. Rockies or the U.S. parks?
Right now, probably the US. When I was younger, it's easier to travel in Southeast Asia, from a budgetary standpoint, mostly, and they do have great nature there, but I think it's much easier. I mean, everything is easier in the US if you have how to finance it, right? But yeah, and they have, like, vast nature here, and it's untamed, untouched. So it is amazing.
Definitely the right job to do a bunch of traveling.
Yeah. And living in California, you have so many options. Most days,
Well,
right?
unless it's burning.
Yeah, exactly. Most days, not today specifically, but for the most part. So one quick last question before I let you go here. Have you heard, listened, watched anything lately that inspired you and you would like to share?
Anything that inspired me lately that I'd like to share? Well, I do see a lot of people take to LinkedIn to proactively ask how they can help others that have lost their jobs, and that may be the first time I've seen it happen on such a scale, particularly, and that's really inspiring. And if you can do that, if you can help a person find his first job in security, if you're already talking about security, then that should be your one grace a day or a year to act on that.
Okay. Great. So let me take this opportunity, Alex, to thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your insights. It was indeed a pleasure talking with you. And I do hope, our listeners would listen to this and would be able to reach out to you. And I do hope that we'll be able to put you in touch with other colleagues that might, help you in any way going forward and expand your network. So thank you again. Looking forward to meeting you in person once the COVID restrictions are lifted and you're able to travel here to San Mateo. Would be happy to, grab a beer or lunch with you. And for now, let me just wish you a pleasant evening. From the sound of it, I presume you live in Tel Aviv, just by
That's
hearing the
absolutely right.
buses. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you for your kind words. I hope you have a good day, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, same here.